the community rule. Where did the community rule come from? How did it come together? How did it develop? And I think what most people don't realise is it developed over quite a long period of time. I mean, we didn't ask to be in community together. We were called to community, both Linda, Andy and I, and ended up living together pretty early on. That was back in 78 in Berwick. And learned some lessons then. Some hard lessons, I think, as well. I mean, especially I would say, Andy, around hospitality, because sometimes I didn't know if I was coming or going. There was that many people coming into the house. You have to remember, Linda at this time as well, and I had a new baby. So we were working things out in a very real context, in a very real way. And then I think we lived together again in Aycliffe.
We did.
I was a new curate. We had another baby by then, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have a bedroom then, or were you?
Well, we lived together in Aycliffe initially in Shafto Way,
Yeah, that's right.
and then we moved up to the Ballarat.
That's
I've
that's
got
nice,
a little fragment out stuck up in my shed there of the material and the wallpaper and everything that we
That's
had
it.
for my room in the Ballarat.
That's
So
right.
there you go.
And then, was it the Grange?
Then at the Grange.
Yeah, the Grange is the first Nether Springs, and this is in North Northumberland. I mean, the way we got to the Grange is amazing, but I'm not, that's a different story. But Andy actually lived in a cupboard in my kids, two of my girls' bedrooms, and he was the talk of the school because the kids used to say, "Who's the man that lives in your cupboard?"
Well, we've only just found this out in the last...
You know, I'd known about it. The kids had mentioned it before. Now, I seriously mean a cupboard. There was no room to stretch out. I made you a bed. Was it me who made you the bed? Or?
I can't remember.
Might have been Chris. It would probably be Chris because you would have went on your back. But we had this bed and it was only about 4 foot.
It was like it was a cabin.
It was a cabin.
Yeah.
Well, I never know how it was fine because you're about 6'3", aren't you?
Yeah, with our sleep curled up.
Seems curled up. So Andy had this cupboard with this bed with books.
All around.
Because
And
I used to go to nick your
And
books.
the light, yeah.
And the light.
But that was just literally a place to sleep.
It was a place to sleep.
It was a big enough
The
house.
point
It just
being-
wasn't a spare room.
The point being, these are real situations, and the way for living that we gave voice to, that we gave words to, was actually forged out of our real life situations as we were discovering what it meant to live together in community. I was working out new monasticism in the middle of this,
And cleaning windows.
cleaning windows and doing gardens and having 4 kids. And you are looking who you were going to have 4 kids with, and it was all the down-to-earth, nitty-gritty
Yeah.
stuff that makes a life. And that's just so important because we've got no chance this afternoon of Andy brought out a bag before. It's over there actually.
Well, the file I've got.
It's about this thick, and basically it's notes, stories. Here it is. You see.
That's my notes on chapters to do with the bits in the room at
Yeah.
the moment. Some of them are written up.
Now, most of these are living experiences, or the stories that gave us coherence when we were trying to find out how we were going to live. Andy said something funny the other day. I think it was today. He was saying about the daily office, and people think there's some magical reason why it was at 9:30. Well, actually, we made it for 9:30 because we had the school runs to do before, and so our lives were. Our rhythm of life, our way for living, was forged out of living every day. And for most of the time, that meant you were travelling all over the place.
Hitchhiking horse.
Hitchhiking.
Yeah.
I mean, he still hasn't got a decent suitcase. I thought he'd have a decent suitcase by now.
Oh.
He thinks he's got one. He's just had bags that he brought out before with no handles on. But my enduring pictures of Andy are on the A1 or the A167 with his thumb out with all these bags. Most of the content which I knew because he packed them on the living room floor at the house. And in the meantime, I'm digging gardens with Chris, dear Chris and Sandra.
They're picking eggs.
They're picking eggs. We did that many jobs, Chris and I. Painting and decorating. Window cleaning was the best because I was terrified of heights and used to keep falling off. And then also, we just had people. So in the middle of it, we had people. We had very little cash between us. You had your Special America Fund, I used to hate, because I'd be starving most of the time, and you'd have your Special America Fund to take you to America, which was quite right. which was quite right. But it's in that context that this rule was forged, isn't it? Is that...
Well, that and all the other ones that accumulate.
Yeah.
By the time we came to do a rule,
Yeah.
what we were doing was, if you think of the question where they said, somebody says to Jesus, "Where do you live?" and he says, "Come and see."
Yeah.
And that had been always the way that we'd worked, although it was a sort of dispersed setting. People would come and see. Now, there was a point at which interest in the community and what we were about had taken on such a momentum that we couldn't say to everybody, "Come and see." There just wasn't. We needed to start formulating things that people could go away and look at and hold against their lives. And what we were trying to do was articulate something that was an expression of the values that we collectively had been living in our various circumstances over a number of years. Yeah. And I remember sitting down and going through that together. We knew the task, we knew why we were doing it, but we were trying to do something that would be inspirational and not prescriptive. And we wanted something which was not too bogged down with this is the way you do this and that's the way you do the other, but rather was something that was going to fire people's hearts and change their way of living.
Yeah. I think it's important. This is called the Northumbria Community Rule, and the context in which we lived was Northumbria. And when we talk about Northumbria, we're thinking the ancient kingdom of Northumbria, because Aycliffe for me was Northumbria too, in terms of my understanding, because there was lots of stuff that developed.
But a lot of the people, even at the time that we were doing it, were people who were living well outside of Northumbria, never mind Northumberland. And they were also looking back to a place and a time in history where the Northumbrian church was birthed, and where the kind of spirituality and mechanisms and values that were still informing us now were being worked out in practice, and places like the island and the actual geographical area meant a lot to other people, even although they didn't live here. So, but it was never exclusively for the people who were around here.
No, but the link was important. Yes. I mean, I never think in linear terms. I think in terms of when I'm here, I'm back with the saints. You know what I mean? We've got specific saints here who are we're part of their community in some way. Aidan, Cuthbert, there's all kinds of people who are as alive in my heart. I'm just beginning to experience this in Turkey now, because I've got the beloved John.
Yes.
I've got Mother Mary. I haven't made the same links yet. And I'm not talking in any weird way now. I'm talking practically that these are members of my family. They're part of our...
When we talk about Aidan or Oswald or whoever it is, these are people who we know and we know well.
Yes.
And we know exactly how they feel about things. We know enough stories about them, and those stories are very vivid to us. Yeah. They are real memory for us. And it's the same if you would go to Ireland. There would be particular historical events that still have ramifications now, and they would talk about particular events historically as if they'd happened last week.
Yes.
Because the implications of them are present and vivid now.
Yeah. I think that's really important. When I say I don't think in linear terms, it's because I think in Jewish terms, and looking back to significant moments. And when we relive those moments, the same power and presence of God has got the possibility of being there. And I think in that way. But just a joke side, in terms of members of the family, I remember going to Ireland, and the first time I met Mike Cullen. And I pulled up outside St Brendan's Cathedral, and Mike's standing and he's waving, Michael's standing and he's waving, and he's saying to us, he's shouting, "John, are you alright?" And I'm saying yes, and then he's shouting, "Brendan, John's here! It's fantastic, beautiful. Brendan John's here." So I walked up to Michael, right? I walked up to Michael and said, "Who are you talking to?" "I'm talking to Brendan, for goodness sake. I need to let him know that you're here."